the astable multivibrator. So the second type of multivibrator circuit, which can be designed using 555 timer, is called astable. As the name indicates, astable means it's a circuit which doesn't have any stable states. So it has more than one state. In the sense, the output will have two states. So it will have the 0 state and the 1 state, but both of them are not stable states. Unlike the monostable multivibrator, in the monostable, the 0 state was considered as the stable state. The 1 state was considered as the semi-stable or quasi-stable. Whereas in astable multivibrator, the 0 state as well as 1 state, both are quasi-stable or semi-stable states. None of them are stable states. Please remember that. And how do we judge? You will say, looking at the output waveform, both have two states. Even monostable has 0 and 1 state, even astable will have 0 and 1 state. Then how do you say whether they are stable or quasi-stable? The simple way to determine that is, this circuit works without an input signal. In the sense, by using external components like resistors and capacitors, we can make the circuit change from one state to another state. And it doesn't need an external input trigger for this purpose. Whereas in monostable, if you remember, unless and until we give an external input trigger and that trigger pulse goes below 1/3 VCC, output would not change from 0 to 1 state. If output has to change from 0 to 1 state, that can be done only with an external trigger negative going pulse that goes below 1/3 VCC in monostable. But in astable, if you see here, if you see the connection diagram, there is no external input signal. So this circuit is also called as an oscillator. Astable multivibrator is commonly used to generate square wave oscillations. Why oscillations? Remember, an oscillator is a circuit which generates output signals, sinusoidal, non-sinusoidal output signals. Sinusoidal oscillators, you are familiar with Hartley and Colpitts. We have already studied that. Hartley, Colpitts, RC phase shift, so on. They generate sinusoidal output signals. Whereas this astable multivibrator is a square wave oscillator. It generates square waves or rectangular waveforms at the output. So it can generate either a complete square wave where on time and off time are equal. That is, logic 1 and logic 0 have equal time durations. Or it can generate rectangular waveforms where logic high and logic 0 have different time durations. So this is also known as a oscillator. Okay. So in this circuit, as you can see, as you can see the connections for astable multivibrator. See here, this is your timer 555. As we know, pin 8 should be connected to VCC. Pin 4, what is pin 4? Pin 4 is the reset input pin. Please remember, it is an asynchronous input which can bring the output from logic 1 to logic 0 in between its time duration. So you have designed it to remain in logic 1 for 5 milliseconds, but you want to bring it down in between after 2 milliseconds or so. Then you give a 0 to pin 4, it will come down automatically. But if I don't want to do a reset, pin 4 should be connected to VCC. Okay. So pin 4 is connected to VCC whenever you don't want a reset. 8 is the power supply pin. It should surely be connected to VCC. Then pin 1 is grounded. Pin 5 is known as the control voltage pin. This control voltage pin also, I told you, is used to generate an external voltage other than 2/3 VCC to the upper comparator. If you remember, pin 5 is connected to the upper comparator where it gives a reference voltage of 2/3 VCC. If you are satisfied with 2/3 and don't want to change it, just use a capacitor of 0.01 microfarad from pin 5 to ground. That's what we have done. So the comparison signal to the upper comparator is 2/3 VCC. Next, we have pin 7 connected to a resistance RA. This RA is connected between VCC and pin 7, and RB is connected shorted to RA. It is also connected between 7 and 6. If you see, pin 2 and pin 6 are connected together, shorted. What is pin 2? Pin 2 is the pin where we give an external input trigger. Since in this circuit we are not using any external input trigger, we'll connect this pin 2 also to the capacitor. Pin 6 was the threshold pin which was connected to capacitor even in monostable. Here also we are going to connect this pin 6 to the capacitor. So 2 and 6 are both connected to the capacitor signal as we have shown here. Okay, so this is the connection diagram for an astable multivibrator circuit. Let's see how this works in detail by looking into the internal block diagram of the 555 timer. So here as we can see here, this is the internal block diagram of the 555 timer, where you have 3 5K resistors. Can you see here? 3 5K resistors, 2 transistors. I told you you can use a single transistor, that is discharge transistor, and instead of the second transistor we can simply use the reset pin of the SR flip-flop. So that's what is done here. Pin 4 is directly connected to the reset of SR flip-flop. 2 comparators, C1 and C2, upper comparator to which we give a threshold voltage of 2/3 VCC. Can you see VA? VA is also connected to pin 5, which is the control voltage pin. And here we have 2/3 VCC, the voltage across 2 resistors. Okay, inverting terminal it goes. Then to the lower comparator, we use the voltage across single 5K resistor. It will be 1/3 VCC, and that is given to the positive terminal of lower comparator. And as we can see, the outputs of the comparator are connected to the S and R inputs, and Q bar is the final. We take the complemented output from the flip-flop, which is connected through a power amplifier and inverting stage to get the final output. So to get this final output, it passes through a power amplifier along with an inverter, and the same connection is also connected to the base of transistor T, where this transistor T, which is a discharge transistor, can be switched on or off depending upon the value of this signal Q bar. Now we'll see what are the external connections which we'll make in this circuit. As you can see, we have connected 2 resistors R1, R2 and a capacitor C, all in series. They are connected between VCC and ground, but make a note of these connections. The midpoint where R1 and R2 are connected is connected to pin 7, which is the discharge pin. It goes to the collector of this discharge transistor. So this R1, R2 midpoint is connected, joining point is connected to pin 7. Then pin 6 and pin 2, the trigger input as well as the threshold voltage, these 2 pins are connected to the capacitor. As you can see, the voltage across the capacitor is given at pin 2 as well as at pin 6. And as you can see, since we don't want to use this reset pin, pin 4 will be shorted to VCC, and the final output is measured at pin 3 here. And pin 1 is grounded. As you can see here, pin 1 will be grounded. Okay, so this is the connection with the internal block diagram. Now let's try to analyze the operation of this astable multivibrator, how it generates a square or rectangular output without any input signal. Let's try to see this. So initially what happens, the voltage across this capacitor will be 0. So voltage across the capacitor is 0 means this input, the inverting input to the lower comparator will be 0, whereas this will be at VCC by 3, 1 by 3 VCC, right? The non-inverting terminal. So output of this lower comparator is 1. Okay. And what about this? In the upper comparator, I have 2 by 3 VCC here. The inverting terminal voltage is 2 by 3 VCC and this voltage is 0. So output of upper comparator is 0. So you can have Q in one state. So Q will be in one state means the final output will be 0 as shown here. The final output will be 0. Okay. So Q bar is 0 here. If Q is 1, Q bar is 0 and the final output can be in one state. So let's assume the output is in one state initially. See, in this circuit, output can be imagined to be either in high state or low state initially. It doesn't matter because this happens in the beginning. Within few microseconds, it will change its state. So according to our analysis, the output is in one state initially. Now let's see what happens. This capacitor should start charging. So let me say here, if I told you either assume output to be in 0 state or 1 state. If we assume 0 state also, it is no problem. Here, both cases, it will generate the previous state. The output of the flip-flop will just remain. So now what happens? The capacitor tries to charge towards this VCC. What is the path for charging? Through the resistor R1, R2 and C. So this capacitor tries to charge towards VCC through this path. Okay. Now, as the capacitor is trying to charge towards VCC, it gains a voltage which is quite, as it starts increasing exponentially. We know the capacitor starts gaining charges or voltages exponentially. So this is the path for the capacitor to charge. So how long we allow the capacitor to charge? The capacitor can charge until the voltage across the capacitor becomes 2 by 3 VCC. Till that point, you will not observe any change in the output. But when the voltage across capacitor reaches a value just greater than 2 by 3 VCC, you see the lower comparator inverting terminal will also get this voltage. So the voltage at this terminal will be just greater than 2 by 3 VCC. So what's the output of this lower comparator? This is 1/3 fixed, right? Here we have 1 by 3 VCC, here we have 2 by 3. So this value S input turns out to be 0. And what about the upper comparator? Here the positive terminal becomes greater than 2 by 3. The negative terminal is at 2 by 3. So this becomes 1. So R becomes 1 and S becomes 0. This is written just like that. You just ignore this. So R becomes 1 and S becomes 0. If R is 1, what is Q? Q is 0. Q bar is 1. So whenever R becomes 1, the flip-flop is in reset state. In the sense, Q becomes 0 and Q bar becomes 1. If Q bar becomes 1, what happens to the final output? Final output goes to 0. So we said initially the final output was in one state. It is now going to 0. And when is this happening? The final output goes to 0 when the capacitor has reached a voltage greater than 2/3 VCC. So when the capacitor voltage just increases above 2/3 VCC, we see the comparators behave in such a way that they will reset the flip-flop and Q bar becomes 1 and the final output goes to 0 state. Now, the final output is in 0 state and how long will it remain here? So if final output is 0 and Q bar is 1, what happens to this transistor T? The discharge transistor's base gets logic 1. Logic 1 means, I told you, it is a positive voltage nearing VCC. So the base of this transistor is at a voltage nearing VCC. Hence this transistor is on. If this transistor is on, what will happen now? What do you expect? Where is this transistor connected? This transistor's collector is connected at this point, the junction between R1 and R2. So all the charges or the voltage gained by this capacitor should now be discharged through this on transistor. Remember, on transistor offers very low resistance, almost zero resistance. So this capacitor tries to discharge through this transistor. But you see, this capacitor is not directly connected to the transistor like in monostable. It is connected to the transistor through a resistor R2. So the path for this to discharge is through this R2 and then through this transistor to ground. Are you following this? The capacitor is not directly connected across the discharge transistor, but it is connected through the resistance R2. So it has to discharge through R2 and then it should reach ground. So I'll just show you in the animation next. So what has happened? All this we have seen. So this has come to 1. So can you see this path? This capacitor is discharging through R2 via this transistor to ground. So when does this happen? This happens when the final output is in 0 state or Q bar is in 1 state. Then the transistor is on. So as this capacitor is discharging, it's not discharging directly now. Please see here. The capacitor reaches, when does the capacitor charge? When the output is in high state. But it can charge only up to the level 2/3 VCC. After that, when it just crosses 2/3 VCC, this capacitor discharges. But how far can this capacitor? Remember, the discharge path is not sudden like in monostable. In monostable, it was a sudden discharge because the capacitor would directly be connected to an on transistor. But here, the capacitor goes through a resistor to the transistor. So what is the discharge time constant? It is R2 into C. The charging time constant will be R1 plus R2 into C because the charging path is via resistor R1, R2 and then to C. Whereas the discharge happens through resistor R2 and the transistor. So I told you transistor resistance is negligible, 0. So the discharge time constant will be R2 into C. Okay. So the capacitor doesn't discharge suddenly, but it is a slow discharge. So the capacitor discharges slowly until some point. What is that point? It can discharge only till it reaches a voltage level of 1/3 VCC. Why is that? We'll see here. Okay, so it is discharging as I showed you and discharge to the ground. What happens next? When it is discharging, it will be in this state. As soon as the voltage at the capacitor becomes just less than 1/3 VCC. So if the voltage across this capacitor is less than 1/3 VCC, what happens now? Again, you see this capacitor voltage is fed to the inverting terminal. So this comparator output comes to 1 state because inverting voltage is less than 1/3 whereas non-inverting is at 1/3. And what about the upper comparator? In the upper comparator also pin 6 comes to less than 1/3 whereas pin 5, that is inverting terminal, is at 2/3. So this comparator output will be 0. So as you can see here, upper comparator output is at 0, lower comparator output is at 1. So S is 1, R is 0. Again, Q comes to 1, Q bar goes to 0. So when Q bar goes to 0, what happens to the final output? Output will again change from 0 to 1. So you can see in this waveform shown here, the final output which was at 0 state is changing to 1 state. And when is this happening? When this capacitor voltage has just gone just below 1/3 VCC. So when this capacitor voltage goes just below 1/3 VCC, you can clearly see that the output again changes from low to high state. So we are not using any external trigger. We are connecting a circuit, external circuit in such a way, it will automatically change states. Now output has gone back to high state again. So again, what will happen? When output is in high state, this transistor will be off. Why will it be off? Because the base is at logic 0. You can see this logic 0 is given to the base of this transistor. So the discharge transistor is in off state. Clear? So since this transistor is off, now this charging cycle repeats. Again, whenever this transistor is off, this capacitor will start charging towards VCC through the resistors R1 and R2. So once it starts charging, it goes on charging. It is in the charging cycle. It goes on charging exponentially till the voltage across the capacitor reaches 2/3. So here again capacitor is charging and it charges till the voltage becomes 2/3 VCC. As soon as the voltage across the capacitor becomes 2/3 VCC, these values will change. The upper comparator output becomes 1, the lower comparator output becomes 0. So Q becomes 0, Q bar becomes 1, and when Q bar becomes 1, the final output goes to 0 state. So please understand this correctly. Whenever the transistor is off, the capacitor will be in its charging cycle. Whenever the capacitor is in its charging cycle, output will remain in high state. So for whatever duration the capacitor is charging, output will remain in high state. How long do we allow the capacitor to charge? Till the voltage across it reaches 2/3 VCC. As soon as the capacitor voltage reaches 2/3 VCC, the condition in the timer internally changes. So output goes from 1 to 0. When output goes from 1 to 0, this transistor is switched on. If this discharge transistor is switched on, now it is time for this capacitor to discharge. It will discharge through the resistor R2 via this discharge transistor to the ground. So please understand the discharge time depends upon this resistor R2 into C, whereas the charging time depends upon R1 plus R2 into C. Okay. And the capacitor is allowed to discharge only till the voltage across capacitor just reaches below 1/3 VCC. When this capacitor has discharged till 1/3 VCC and it starts going below that, again this timer internally changes states so that output goes from 0 to logic 1 and again transistor is off and the capacitor begins to charge. So this is the process of astable multivibrator operation. So let's just try to see the waveforms for this astable and the expression for the timing cycles. What are the various times? Duration where the output is high and output is low. Okay. So you can see here. So please remember, since we don't use an external trigger, astable multivibrator is a circuit where the output has no stable states. Both the states are quasi or semi-stable states and it automatically shifts from one state to another because of the circuitry which we connect, and we don't use any input trigger. I told you that's why it's a square or rectangular wave oscillator also. It generates a square or rectangular wave. Anyway, as you can see the waveforms in this circuit, you see whenever the output is in logic high, capacitor is charging, and the capacitor can charge between 1/3 and 2/3 VCC. And whenever the output is in low state, the capacitor is discharging, and discharge also should happen between 2/3 and 1/3 VCC. We don't allow the capacitor voltages to change below 1/3 or above 2/3, because when it reaches these values, the circuit conditions will change so that output changes state and the capacitor goes in the opposite direction. If it was charging, it will begin discharge. If it was discharging, it will begin to charge. So the capacitor is allowed to work only between these voltages, whereas output will vary between 0 to VCC. Logic 0 is 0 volts. Logic high is VCC. Whatever VCC we connect in this circuit. Remember, a timer can work with VCC ranging from nearly 3 volts to 18 volts. You can give any supply voltage anywhere between 3 to 18 volts. Okay, so now based on this, you remember the expression which we considered in the last class, the expression for voltage across the capacitor. We are going to apply the same expression, and simplifying that, we will be getting the expression for the time when output is in logic 1 TP1, and when the time duration when the output is in logic 0 TP2. So if I consider logic 1 state, the capacitor voltage, remember what was the expression we had written? VC, the voltage across capacitor, is equal to Vf, the final voltage to which the capacitor can charge, plus initial voltage Vi minus Vf into e to the power of minus T by Rc. So this is the standard expression for instantaneous voltage across any capacitor as it is gaining or losing charges. So when we substitute the values in this expression for the charging cycle, so when the capacitor is charging, the initial voltage with which it starts is 1/3 VCC. So Vi will be 1/3 VCC, whereas the final voltage to which it will reach if allowed. Please remember, I should consider the final voltage which it can reach. If we allow it to reach, it will be VCC. If at all it is allowed, it can go up to VCC. So in this first condition, you substitute Vf as VCC and Vi as 1/3 VCC. For Vi, you are going to substitute 1/3 VCC. And when you substitute these two things, remember this R and C value, the charging time should also change. If I change this time T to TP1, see here, this duration we say is TP1. During TP1, this capacitor is charging. And what is the charging time constant? R1 plus R2 into C. So instead of RC, I am going to put R1 plus R2 into C, because that is the charging path. Okay, R1 plus R2 into C, you substitute for this, and for this T you substitute TP1. So when you make all these substitutions, please understand and make a note of this. Vf will be VCC, the final voltage to which the capacitor can charge if allowed. But the starting point is Vi, which is 1/3 VCC. So if you substitute these values, and for small t you put TP1, the duration of the logic 1 pulse, and for RC we substitute the charging time constant R1 plus R2 into C, then the expression for TP1 becomes something like this. You'll, just like yesterday, if we substitute and simplify, you'll get R1 plus R2 into C ln of 2. Yesterday we got ln of 3. Here we'll get ln of 2. Remember how we simplified in the same way. We'll substitute all the values, isolate the terms, we'll take logarithms, natural logarithms, so that this e power something will reduce to ln of 2. So what is ln of 2? You get 0.7, or exactly if we speak, it is 0.69. 0.693 you get. So the duration, the expression for TP1, the on time, is 0.693 R1 plus R2 into C. Okay, please remember this. Next, the same thing, let's try to get the expression for TP2. If I want the expression for TP2, I'll just clean this out. 2 minutes. So, can you tell me, if I want TP2, what would be the value of VF? For TP2, it is the time when this capacitor is discharging. So since the capacitor is discharging, what is the initial level with which it starts discharging? Where is it situated? What is the voltage across capacitor when it begins discharge? The capacitor is at 2 by 3 VCC. So exactly, this capacitor is at 2 by 3 VCC when it has started discharging, and if we allow it to discharge completely, what will be the final voltage which the capacitor will discharge to? If at all it is allowed to discharge completely, the final voltage to which the capacitor can discharge is 0. So Vf will be 0 in this expression. Vi is 2 by 3 VCC. So you just sit, go home, substitute these values in this expression, the standard expression for Vc. Vf plus Vi minus Vf into e to the power of minus t by Rc. In this, if you substitute Vi as 2 by 3 VCC and Vf as 0, and instead of small t, what should I put? Instead of small t, I should put TP2 now. At the end of discharge cycle, the time period that would have elapsed is TP2. And instead of R1 plus R2 into C, or instead of RC, I should put R2 into C, because the discharge path is through the single resistor R2 and the transistor. So if I substitute all these values, Vi as 2/3 VCC, Vf as 0, and T, small t as TP2, and Rc as R2 into C. So if we make all these substitutions, again the expression for TP2 will turn out to be R2 into C. Okay. So see here, it is R2 into C ln of 2, or 0.7 R2 into C. So these are the expressions for on time and off time in a astable multivibrator. Okay. All of you please drop in your USNs. B section can do it first, and then A section people can do. All the B section people drop in your USNs. If I now measure the total time period T, it will be what? Total time period T is on time plus off time, TP1 plus TP2, which will turn out to be, combining both these equations, 0.7 into R1 plus 2 R2 into C. So we have 0.7 R1 plus R2 into C for TP1, 0.7 R2 into C for TP2. Adding both, I'll get 0.7 R1 plus R2 into C. So this is the expression for the total time period T. If I know the total time period T, what will be the expression for frequency F? F will be 1 by T. The frequency F turns out to be 1 by T. If I now measure the total time period T, it will be what? Total time period T is on time plus off time, TP1 plus TP2, which will turn out to be, combining both these equations, 0.7 into R1 plus 2 R2 into C. So we have 0.7 R1 plus R2 into C for TP1, 0.7 R2 into C for TP2. Adding both, I'll get 0.7 R1 plus R2 into C. So this is the expression for the total time period T. If I know the total time period T, what will be the expression for frequency F? F will be 1 by T. The frequency F turns out to be 1 by T. So the same derivation is shown here. In the end, after finding total time T, here instead of R1, R2, we have considered RA, RB. Either way, it's one and the same. So when I divide 1 by 0.69 or 0.7, I'll get, so 1 by 0.7 is 1.4. So F0 turns out to be 1.4 divided by R1 plus 2R2 into C, or RA plus 2RB into C. This is the expression for frequency. We can measure something known as duty cycle. What do you mean by duty cycle? All of you are familiar with this term, right? Duty cycle means it is the on time divided by total time. In a square or rectangular waveform, if I keep it in logic high for some time called as TP1, and it is in logic low for a duration TP2, then we know duty cycle means TP1 divided by TP1 plus TP2, or the total time T. This is a measure of how much power will be utilized by a rectangular waveform, and it is very useful. So if I substitute for TP1, I'll get R1 plus R2 or RA plus RB in the numerator. If I substitute, cycle comes to this into 100. So it is on time divided by total time. Okay. Now, if you see this waveform, it is a three-dimensional, or even if we have drawn it in 2 dimensions, we have 3 parameters here. One is the free running frequency in hertz in the x-axis. Here we have the value of capacitance C in this, and the resistance values are drawn. Different curves are drawn for the resistance values, and in the resistance values we have taken RA plus 2RB or R1 plus 2R2, because that is the value to be considered to measure frequency. So you can see during design, if you want to design for 1 kilohertz with a 10K resistor, can you see this line? If you are using total resistance of 10K, then the capacitance value which you will get to use is 0.1 microfarad. So here, when I say total resistance, it is R1 plus 2R2. So all that mixed together, it should be 10K. You should choose R1 and R2 in such a way that R1 plus 2R2 will turn out to be 10K. Then if you use a C of 0.1 microfarad, you will be designing for a frequency of 1K. If you choose a different resistance, 1K resistance, accordingly your capacitance value will change. If your total resistance, say I just extend this curve, if I use a total resistance of 1K instead of 10K, then the corresponding capacitance which I get to use is what? 1 microfarad instead of 10. Okay. So this is about the curves. The last thing here is a problem on astable multivibrator. So in the astable multivibrator which we saw, RA is given as 2.2K, RB 3.9K, C 0.1 microfarad. You are supposed to find the width of the positive pulse, that is TP1 or TC, negative pulse width TD. We call TP1 as TC because it is charging time of capacitor. TP2 can be called as TD because it is discharging pulse. You are also supposed to find the free running frequency. So you can see we have the expression. I told you the expression can be, if I am to be exact, it is 0.69 RA plus RB into C for charging time. So I'm substituting the values of RA, RB and C. I'll get TC as 0.421 millisecond. To find TD, the expression is 0.69 RB into C. RB is 3.9K, C is 0.1 micro. So you'll get TD as 0.269 milliseconds. Finally, how do you find the frequency F? F is 1 divided by Tc plus Td. Tc plus Td gives me the total time duration for one cycle of the rectangular wave. So 1 by T or Tc plus Td gives me 1.45 kilohertz, which is the required frequency. So you can get problems like this, or as we do in the lab, it can be design problem.